What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take NFL DFS First Look. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And this fella you see in the desert is a true OG of the Wise Take Nation. He's known as Patio Joe. You can find him on Twitter at Patio Joe. Ref, Joey, what's happening, bro?
What's going on? I'm actually, yes, I am in the desert, but if you are, I know you're not, but those people that are Star Wars fans, they'll know that I am on the planet of Tatooine today. This is the home planet of Luke Skywalker. So I thought I'd throw that at you. Where's Patio Joe this week? I'm on Tatooine. You know what I mean?
I see. So it's not just some ordinary desert. My bad. My bad, Joe.
Oh, no, I know. The Star Wars geeks on here are gonna come after you.
I'm done. That's it, man. That's it. Anyway, Joe, how was your week 2?
Week 2 was really good. Started out the cash game, won again. 2-0 on the season. As we know, we spoke of last week how my goal this year is basically just going to do predominantly cash games and trying to win that. It gives you the best odds, be top 50 and stuff like that. You're not going to get rich from it unless you're paying huge amounts, but you're also, you don't only have to get in the top 50. But, last week I won off of, my core play, Calvin Ridley, the number 1 receiver in football right now. He was a core play. I also went with Dak, who had about 40 points. And even though, my other core plays like Henry and Taylor were fine, Taylor obviously was good, but Henry obviously was busted. But when you're almost 90% owned in cash games, I don't even call that as a bust. I just call that as you're going with everybody else, going with the crowd. And if he scored 40, I would have scored 40 more points. It didn't really matter because you're not going to get an edge on that. Where I got the edge was a 10% Calvin Ridley. That was a core play that if you had my article in the Wise Take, it was my core play, probably my favorite play. And then Dak Prescott at 11% in cash games. And he was the top scoring quarterback of the week. So you get just a little bit different there. Even if you have somebody that doesn't do too well like Marquise Brown did or Henry, they didn't get goose eggs as Hunter Henry did. He got me 11 points and did just fine. So that's how I cashed. I was in the top about 20% and I'm ready for week 3.
Joey's been doing the dirties, man, in the cash game world. Cash game Joey. Dirty Joe.
And it's tough because, you got to deal with the trains and stuff like that. Like, you can go in and you can have, 20 of the same lineup that you're going up against. And, everybody's passing around lineups and stuff like that. So, I don't know. It's kind of, it's not as exciting as GPPs, but you're going to be in it a lot more than GPPs. Yeah, you got to be in the top 20%. Or in the top, if you're really close to real sweat, you got to be in the top 5 or 10% to really be getting something. So it's just a matter of, I guess, risk that I want to take. And
man, you're winning, man. I don't care what anyone says. At the end of the day, I've been playing GPPs 2 weeks, son. You know what I am? 0-2, son. Yeah. So, I don't care. I don't hit on a cash game life. Tournaments, if you're into winning percentage, tournaments are not your thing, right? It's just cash games, there's an art to it, and I believe there's still an edge to it. I get too stubborn, like playing the block sometimes irritates me, and it's the right move, right? Derrick Henry was the block, he was going to be so high owned that you're better off taking him, because the downside of not having him if he were to go off would have been greater than the downside of having him at 90% and him sucking, which he did. So that kind of stuff irritates me. I say that, and Derrick Henry was my highest owned player. Well, no, I think he was my second highest owned player, or maybe he was my highest. So it is what it is. Maybe I should have played cash. I only have the only thing I got right in week 2, and it was not a good week. This is no way a humble brag. Was the Aaron Jones call though? He did make my core plays article. And I felt pretty good about that. And then I found out that was the only thing I was going to get to feel good about because everybody else just sucked. It was just crazy with injuries, man. Just injuries everywhere. It was landmines, man. This guy's going down. seeing the effects of no preseason. I mean, we lost some epic players right now, man. Michael Thomas is going to be out for a little bit. Christian McCaffrey's hurt. Saquon. Like, just, it's endless, man. You know, Paris Campbell, I never cared about until last week. And then he got hurt. So that was a big deal to me. You know, it's like, I don't know. It was wild. But here we are, Joe. Looking at week 3 of the NFL season. Already week 3, man. Shit is crazy. By the way, Patio Joe's in the chat asking where you are. I know you'd mentioned it earlier. And then Wig, longtime White Tech Nation member Wig, asked, "Is that an igloo in the background?" So I don't know. There's a point there. Is that an igloo, man? Is this a desert? That was an igloo?
No, I'm on Tatooine. If you knew Luke Skywalker's home did look like an igloo.
Ah, I see.
So, yes.
I see.
Yes.
Oh.
You know what else? You know what else we call an igloo?
What's that?
An igloo is the girl that you have an Eskimo brother.
Oh,
with.
yeah.
She's the igloo.
Okay. Because she houses the Eskimos.
Obviously.
Right. Yes. Yes. Humorous. Okay. Steve Samsel had it, though. He had it. Yeah. Shout out to Steve, man. He had it. With that said, we're going to get into some week 3 first look action. I'm going to pull up this little sheet that I worked hard on to make for the nation. Just kind of going team by team. The projections you see on the screen, nation, are very preliminary or early, right? Pretty raw. Haven't really tweaked them yet. But just to throw some stats, give you guys a visual if you're watching on video. If you're listening to this audio-wise, you're set, you're straight, you're good. Second of the show. But if you want something to look at, you want to look at some numbers, then make sure you check out the YouTube channel to watch it there. With that said, please hit the like button, nation, if you haven't already. Do me a favor, man. Share the shows, man. We need help. YouTube is not helping us. YouTube is not pushing us. We need the nation to step it up. And we need the nation to not only like the videos. Likes, unfortunately, is no longer good enough. We need likes, and we need some share action. So share it on your platform. Do what you got to do, and it'll help us continue to do thy dirty in the DFS industry. Anyway, first game. Washington at Cleveland. We have a 44 total, down from 45. Cleveland opened up -7, up to -7.5. Patio Joe, we're going to talk about the Washington side first. We'll go team by team in this, man. We'll go team by team in this. Talk to me about Washington.
Washington, you know, they kind of showed their true colors this week, you know, with, you know, kind of getting boat raced against the Cardinals. You know, I see them, and I basically see, you know, 2 players you might want to have a little bit of, you know, exposure to. That's McLaurin and Thomas. The quarterback, Haskins, is way, you know, just not, he's just not accurate with his throws that much, so you can't really depend on him. Their defense has actually been kind of surprising this year, but they still gave up a lot of points to Kyler Murray. So, you know, Washington, I'm basically looking at, you know, maybe McLaurin as a one-off, Thomas if I need a little bit of salary relief, but there's not much else. I might even throw a little bit look at the Browns defense if I was attacking the Skins or Washington.
You know, I think when I first look at this, considering Cleveland's defense, right? I respect Denzel Ward, so that makes me a little bit nervous about McLaurin. I think in tournaments, sure, but I immediately get a little nervous about that. But I do believe this is a really good spot for Logan Thomas. The Browns are expected to kind of struggle with a tight end this year, and that kind of has been the case. Thomas is seeing consistent targets. The efficiency is not what we want it to be, right? But it has been there. And so I think for this week, for me, I'm trying to get as many of these guys that are getting that volume, and especially the ones that I think are underpriced, and I'm going to try to take advantage and just hope variance comes together and they start to put some of those targets into reception, some conversion action, if you will. So I'm with you. I like Logan Thomas. On DraftKings, he is 3,700, 4,900 on FanDuel. I'll take that too. Projects well for us so far. And, you know, as far as pace goes, I got to update this shit. But I will say that both of these teams have been surprisingly fast in the early going. Just putting that out there. But I'm with you. There really isn't a ton on the Washington side. The running back situation is kind of ugly, And plus, Cleveland's not really a team I really want to mess with. So I'm with you. The Skins defense, I actually don't mind. You mentioned Washington's been surprisingly good. It's all about the defensive line. So if they're able to stop the run and they're able to put pressure on Baker, I think Baker's in a little bit of trouble. With that said, talk to me about the Cleveland side.
Well, the Cleveland side is basically, if you think that they have an advantage on the line, on the O-line over the D-line of Washington, if Jack Conklin is back this week, that's going to help Cleveland run the ball more. We saw what they want to do. So, you were talking about game pace. I think what they want is they want to just run the ball, grind the ball down with Chubb for 3 quarters, and then Hunt comes in for the 4th quarter and kind of puts him to sleep. Hunt only had 1 carry until like the 4th quarter of last week's game. So Hunt had a kind of receiving touchdown, which was great, but I still big Chubb is the leader of this backfield. He's the one that got 22 carries.
No, it was just ironic that you said big and then you changed where you were going with it. You immediately said Chubb was the next word. It was just ironic. Me being stupid, but yeah.
I got a big Chubb in my pants.
Like, I just like I like big Chubb. You could, that's what.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think that they faced. Washington has faced 0 running backs in Philly because Sanders was out, and then Kenyon Drake didn't do much. So, I don't know. I don't think on Sunday there's so many other places to go. I don't think you really need any of those runners, but you all know that guys like Chubb and Hunt Chubb can take over a slate just like Aaron Jones did and win your slate because his price is only $7,800, so it's not that expensive. The receivers, I don't think you need them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, taking shots in tournaments on these guys, obviously Odell. Jarvis Landry's targets have been way down. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but they have been, for the most part, force-feeding Odell. I guess in week 2 it didn't work out that way, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm not crazy excited about anybody really from the Browns. I agree on the running back situation. Washington so far has been pretty good against the run. I could see this game being kind of ugly, and I don't know. I think both defenses are definitely in play. But I think I prefer the Redskins just a little bit. With that said, Joe, we'll move on to the next. We've got the Oakland Raiders visiting the New England Patriots. We have a 47.5 total, down from 48. Patriots opened up -6. They are still currently at -6. We'll start with the road team, which is Oakland. I'm sorry, Las Vegas. Shit. Man, I think I double fucked that up. Talk to me about Vegas. Mo.
Yeah, I mean, right now, my first inclination is to just feel like they're gonna just try and stop Jacobs and Waller. So those are the only guys that you're really going to be looking at, and I feel like they're going to put Gilmore on Waller because they split Waller out a lot. They're going to have to keep Waller in, and maybe have maybe a linebacker on him because it seemed to me like our call wants to do is just throw to Waller. Ruggs and Edwards are strictly, dart throws if you wanted to. And Jacobs is a decent price for $8,300 on FanDuel, but I just feel like New England's not going to let them run. I like the New England side of this game way more than I like the Raiders, who are coming off of like a short week 2 and have got to travel to New England and play an early game on the next week. So it doesn't bode well for the Raiders. So I would basically just fade the Raiders myself.
Yeah, I agree. Riding high on Raiders' performance against the Saints, which was definitely impressive. I'm not trying to knock them for anything, but I'm worried about game script here. Their defense obviously is suspect. So, I mean, you take away a couple key mistakes from New Orleans. I don't know if you saw with Drew Brees one of the picks he threw in that game. The dude, the defender, was like standing in the middle of the logo. And like I think Warren Sharp had took a picture of and put it on Twitter. It was funny, man. He was camouflaged in there, so there's a good chance that Breeze just didn't see him. And you take that away, that was a big momentum changing type of play right there. So point being, I'm not as high on their defense, and I'm a little worried that they're going to be playing from behind. And I'm worried that they're not really equipped outside of Darren Waller. Belichick has a history of shutting down, the best, who he believes to be the threat in the opposing team. So I'm a little worried here. There's not really a ton from Oakland I like either. You mentioned Waller, but I think there's a few tight ends that we like, that I think we're going to like. And the receivers just really haven't shown me enough to garner any confidence. What about the Cam Newton and the Patriots?
Well, I mean, looking on FanDuel, Cam is the 7th highest priced quarterback on the day. And for what he's given us the first 2 weeks, averaging 30 FanDuel points during those 2 games, considering that pretty much every time that they're at the goal line, he's going to be the one that's going to get the carries. He has 4 rushing touchdowns on the year. I feel like Cam Newton has got to be like one of the leaders out of the gate as your cash game quarterback. You're gonna want to get a piece of some of the other games, but I feel like Cam has got that upside as of the premier game of the week, which is Dallas and Seattle. He has the upside to keep up with Wilson and Prescott, and obviously Kyler Murray too, who's in a good matchup. So if you want to take the savings, I feel like Cam Newton is a great matchup on Sunday. All the reasons why I said on the Raiders coming off a short week and everything like that even makes it a little bit more. And everything else, like Edelman, it seems like he's going to go to Edelman when he throws to him, or Harry, the 2 guys. Everybody else you can fade. You don't need him. So it's basically Cam, and if you wanted to pair him with Edelman, fine. Edelman more of a DraftKings play, even Harry too. I mean, it's just if they're not going to get in the end zone, if Cam's just going to run it in, you're just going to want Cam.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, what was it? I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, but there was like reports. It had to be last year when Lamar Jackson was doing his thing, running all over the place. There were like, Belichick had said that he believes that a rushing quarterback, a player like that, is the future of football. And you're seeing like he's getting that opportunity with Cam. Like he does not regret Cam running that ball the last play of the game. He would do that 100 out of 100 times. And I don't think anybody would blame him. I think everybody thought that was the right call, being that they couldn't stop him the whole game. So I agree with you. I think he kind of is their running back. He's their true running back. Obviously, James White, I think, will play a piece, but that's like a pass game. He's like a pass game option. Cam is like the running back, it seems. With that said, Julian Edelman and Harry both are getting, decent targets, but Edelman is clearly the guy. And Newton's known for that, kind of locking in on one dude. He's always got that guy, Olsen, whatever. We talked about this so many times. But, so yeah, I think Edelman's in play with Newton. Outside of that, I'm cool with Cam naked in tournaments, I just because. Like, just treat him like he's his own guy. I mean, I would rather stack him. I'm almost always going to stack him with Edelman at that point, or even Harry, like you said. But this seems one-sided to me. I don't know how the Patriots don't roll them this week, but I guess we'll see. We know the Patriots defense did have a lot of people opt out, so I guess we'll have to see. With that said, next up, we've got the Los Angeles Rams and the Buffalo Bills. We have a 47.5 total, up from 45. Bills opened up -3 at home. They're down to -2.5. We'll start with the Rams side of the ball. Patio Joe, do you like anything here?
Well, this is the first test for the Bills. Everybody's on their jocks. Everybody's on Josh Allen's jocks and stuff like that. Now they actually have a team that's coming in to play them. They played the Jets and they played the Dolphins. Sorry, CK, but I mean,
man.
They played two terrible teams. The thing I like about the Rams this week is that their stack is fairly cheap. If you want to, pair Goff with Woods or Kupp, they're fairly cheap. Or even Mr. Higbee is only 6,100. So you could do those 3 guys and then pair the high price guys around them. Kupp's only 7,100 on FanDuel. Robert Woods is 6,600. I think we basically want to see who Tre'Davious White is going to cover, and then probably kind of try and pick on the other guy. So I feel like all those guys are in play. They're all cheap, so I'm going to be looking at the Rams. as kind of maybe contrarian. People are going to think Buffalo's defense. They're not going to want to go there. And I think the Rams will be able to put up some points because the Rams will look good their first 2 games.
Yeah, no, I agree. Tough spot for the running backs. Tough spot for, I think, Woods. I would assume Woods. This is a revenge spot for Woods, though. You know, you always think Cooper Kupp is going to be the dude in these situations, and then it doesn't seem to always work out that way. But assuming that Kupp works out of the slot majority as he always has, you would think this would line up as a decent opportunity for Cooper Kupp. But, you know, there's no guarantees in that. I think Higbee's coming off a great game. Curious to see what his ownership looks like. He's got some price increase action going on. Hard to get excited about the Rams side, but I do think that with this total being so high and everybody's perception of the Bills being such a good defense, I think you could find something low owned here that could do well. And I'm thinking it's one of the receivers also because of how hard this team has been to run on. Just a matter of which one. I'm thinking Cooper Kupp, but Woods has upside, man. He gets to run the ball from time to time. You get some rushing touchdown action. But I don't know. Assume that dude White's pretty damn good. I'll just say that. What about the Bills side?
I'm going to find out who's going to be on the Rams corner, Ramsey. Who's Ramsey going to be following, or if he's just going to be sticking to a side. If we find out he's going to be on Diggs or Brown, I'll go with the other one because it seems to me like Josh Allen seems to have a good rapport with both of these guys. So I feel like just kind of either of those other guys are in play. On FanDuel, their prices are pretty good. The running game, I'm just staying away from right now. I just don't know what to make of it. Both guys are fairly cheap. We all know Zach Moss is supposed to be getting the goal line carries, but they got to get down there. Plus, you also know Josh Allen could steal some of those goal line carries too. So to me, it's if you wanted to do Josh Allen in the tournament, I don't think you need it. He's priced up around with the big boys, and I still don't think he's one of the big boys just yet. And he had 2 good matchups, and that's about it. So to me, it's either Diggs or Brown, and that's it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Allen is, you know, like you hit it on the head, right? He's got the rushing floor. He looks great, but he's had some cupcake matchups. I mean, you're talking about the Jets of Miami, who are you know, in contention. The Jets might very well be the worst team in the league, and I've accepted that fact. But the Dolphins, I don't think, are all that much better. So, yeah, let's see what he does against a team like the Rams. He's got upside, no doubt about it. Not taking that away from him. He showed that upside. But perception may be a little high on him right now. The price is obviously starting to creep up there right now. Has me a little nervous. But I do think that John Brown's price on DraftKings, $5,700, is still low. Diggs is still in playmaking territory, but I have a feeling that after all the noise Diggs made last week, I have a feeling we're going to see Ramsey on him a lot. So I would lean a little bit more towards John Brown. With that said, we'll move on to the next game. This should be fun. The San Francisco 49ers and the New York Giants. 41 total, down from 42. San Francisco opened up -4. They're up to -4.5. San Francisco, second straight game at MetLife. You know, apparently a lot of injuries happening at MetLife. Some shady shit going on with the fields. With that said, Joe, 49ers are banged up, but the Giants just lost Saquon. Talk to me about the Niners.
Yeah. About the Niners, yeah. I mean, or the game in general, but the Niners, you know, if Kittle's out again, Jordan Reed now, 5,300, he has some sort of relevance. Got 2 touchdowns last week. I wrote him up. I just wasn't sold on it. And so, but he wound up having a good game. So, and he was really involved. He had 7 receptions, 8 targets, you know, so he did a lot more than I thought. Gets the Giants this week. So he's like the only like kind of sure thing right now on the Niners that you would even look at because Mostert and Coleman are out. Might want to go to McKinnon, but I think he's more of a DraftKings play. And then the other guy, Wilson. Taylor, same thing. Jeff Wilson Jr. He's the guy that kind of like interests me the most on FanDuel. Because if you follow the Niners, they have a good rushing system. So if Wilson can bust one. And I think he's more of the first and second down guy, and McKinnon's more of the third down guy. That's the only thing. Nick Mullins, no way.
Yeah. Yeah, is Garoppolo like definitely out? Has he been definitely ruled out, or is it like a doubtful deal? Like
it's questionable ankle, but I think he's going to be out. I mean, look, if you can't beat the Giants, I don't know. I don't think that you're going to go anywhere. To be honest with you, anyway. So,
these Giants especially.
It is,
Yeah. No, I feel you. I'm not interested in Garoppolo or Mullins either way. Just the guys they're working with, but I do think you're onto something with the running back situation. McKinnon on DraftKings, like you said, he's 4,900, but you got to figure like he's gonna be used anytime they want to throw because they just don't have a ton of receiving options at the moment. Assuming Kittle's out, if Kittle's in, then are there enough targets to go around? Are the Giants competitive enough? A lot of question marks. But if that's the case, if Kittle's in, well, I guess either way, at 4K on DraftKings, I also think Jeff Wilson is in play because I agree with you. I think he's going to be, when they're at the goal line, if they are in that situation, he'll be the one getting the opportunities to punch it in if they're trying to run it. So we saw last year he showed some upside in the right opportunity, and he's playing a bad defense. So I think there is some upside here with these running backs, which bothers me because I thought I kind of had like a general idea of what I wanted to do. But I think we have to at least look at this shit, right? This situation. We have to at least look at this. McKinnon is the guy that's going to get some targets. For sure he'll get some targets. And Wilson is the guy that's going to get, I think, most of the rushing, or at least a decent cut of rushing opportunities. And he's 4K on DraftKings. And then obviously, like you said, if Kittle's out, I think Reed is certainly a fine play against the Giants. I could dig it. I don't feel comfortable thinking that so many players on this team are in play. That makes me feel a little eerie. What about the Giants side, Joe?
I've been hearing a little bit of like talk about how this is a good spot for the Giants to like kind of rebound because the Niners are so banged up. I mean, their whole defensive line is like out. So Danny Jones actually might have some time for the first time this year. So I still don't think you're going to need them. I don't think that they're the type of offense that's going to put up 30 or 40 points to win you a slate that you would need. I think if you're looking at the running backs, I would stay away from all of them because you have no idea how that's going to shake out. You don't know if Freeman's even going to play or not, or if he doesn't, maybe Gallman's the play. But I remember Wayne Gallman being a chalk play a year ago, and he busted just like normal. So I wouldn't really pay any attention to him. The guy I'm looking at sort of is Golden Tate. With Shepard out, I feel like he's going to be the beneficiary to the targets. He's more of a DraftKings play, but we all know how Tate can bust some and get some touchdowns. So I don't mind that. And obviously Slayton, we know what he can do. Also, he's more of a GPP play at, I think he's 5,500, so he's pretty cheap. And Ingram is, I guess he's in play too. He's getting the target, so he seems to get like 8 targets a game. So that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, they're definitely cheap. The Giants receivers. You heard about Devontae Freeman supposedly going to sign with the Giants? You heard about that, right?
Yeah,
he did that.
That's why I'm like, you don't know how it's going to shake out. You don't know if he's going to.
Yeah, I mean, I highly doubt he's going to. Maybe, I guess, but they're desperate enough.
Well, they have to pass like these like COVID rules, and they can't even be like cleared until Friday or something. Right. So you might not even be able to practice. Like Blake Bortles signed with the Broncos.
Sick move.
Like, he's not even be cleared until Friday. So.
Sick move. Either way, I think there's something to look at here. I mean, to be honest with you, part of me wants to like really take a hard look at Daniel Jones because I'm not going to compare last week to this week. Like the Jets are just fucking horrendous, but I think the Giants offensively are more inept, a little better than the Jets right now. And I think obviously losing Saquon Barkley sucks, terribly, but. We're going to see Danny Jones maybe run a little bit more. Are we going to see Danny Jones being forced to really throw the ball? I mean, their defense is bad, so I agree with you that the 49ers should be able to somehow, do something to them through those running backs. So I think the wide receivers and Danny Jones are kind of interesting for a cheap stack. And it's probably a tough sell after what everybody saw last week going back to a Niners game, but there could be some potential here, especially with a guy like, we know Slayton and Jones have a nice little bond. I agree with you that Tate should make a difference. But But Slayton, man, deep balls all day. Upside. Touchdowns. Deep. Danny Jones. Darius Slayton. Maybe next game. We've got the Houston Texans and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have a 45 total. The Steelers opened up -5.5. It's down to -4. This is a crazy looking game. What do you like on the Texas side, man?
Man, I want to know what Bill O'Brien and the Texans did to the NFL schedule makers. I mean, literally, they start off week 1 with on the road at Kansas City. Then week 2, they have at home against Baltimore. Now week 3, they got to go to Pittsburgh. Like, damn. I mean, the schedule makers did not do them any favor. This is a great spot for Deshaun Watson. You know, people aren't going to be on him after last week. His price is up there with the big boys, but he hasn't been really producing like the big boys. So I don't mind Deshaun Watson at 8K for just a GBP thing. You know, he's going to be throwing the ball. He's probably going to be behind. You got to think Will Fuller maybe with a better, you know, he's an ultimate GBP play. Last week did nothing. This week, you know, he might do something. I don't know if he's healthy. We got to look at the right injury reports for Fuller. And then the running backs, you know, David Johnson kind of came back down to earth last week, but he was facing the Ravens, so we can't really give him too much flack. So we'll see how he does this week against Steelers, which isn't much better. So I'd probably fade that too. Brandon Cooks seemed like he kind of had a decent game. So I just don't think. I think if you're going to play anybody, if you're going to play Watson, just play him naked or play him with his tight end Akins. It seems to me like that's like his best bitch.
That just didn't seem necessary. Oh shit! That just yeah. I'm. It's hard to like anything against the Steelers right now, man. The defense looks legit. Watson's a playmaker. Ownership's going to be low. Sounds like fun, but also sounds kind of painful because his defense has been good and they took away his number one weapon, his favorite, guy to throw it to, and DeAndre Hopkins. I do think David Johnson's kind of interesting. Not that I want to pick on the Steelers with the running backs, but David Johnson is playing a ton of snaps right now, and I think they're going to have to get him more involved. They got him for a reason. They gave up their best player thinking they were getting another, a replacement best player, wild. But yeah, so at 5,400 on DraftKings, I'm kind of interested, man. You should get some pass game work. This game, I don't know. It's tough. The ownership on these guys should be extremely low, and it's another situation where you have, an offense we all consider to be a good offense that's going to have low ownership because of the matchup. And, but it's a dangerous one. The Steelers have been nasty. Talk to me about the Steelers, though.
The Steelers, Deontay Johnson is like, the bougie player of the week, He's still pro Juju, but he's gotten more targets both games, more than Juju, like considerably more. So Juju doesn't have those 2 touchdowns game 1. He's not 7K, but Johnson at 6,300. As soon as it looks like he's got the Q tag on there with his toe, but if he's fine, I don't mind Deontay Johnson firing him up. Did see though what Bradley Roby has done the last 2 weeks against some pretty good speedy receivers. Held Tyreek Hill down until touchdown last week, and then actually the Sunday against Marquise Brown, he held him to like 40 yards or something. Didn't really have that good of a day. So, I don't know. I think Deontay Johnson's going to get another 10 targets. And at 6,300 on FanDuel, he's a good value. So, I just don't know if people should be picking on Roby because he's had good matchups the first couple weeks, and he's done pretty well.
I feel you. We know Big Ben at home is always in play. And I agree with you that the secondary of Houston hasn't really been made out to, hasn't been as bad as I think a lot of us thought it was last year. They were the slowest secondary in the league. This year they've been somehow getting it done. Obviously, James Washington is your burner. Deontay Johnson's in play. Juju's fine. But I think that James Conner is the one I'm reluctant to say this, but I think he's the one I'm most interested in correlation with a little bit of Pittsburgh defense, man. I think we could do something like that. We have seen the running backs have some pretty good games, right? We saw Kansas City's running back, maybe part of the reason that Tyreek Hill and those guys didn't have to do that dirty is because the running game was just doing it. And if Houston does struggle offensively, I would think that bodes well for the running game of Pittsburgh. If you can stomach James Conner, who I think did pretty well last week, but obviously the injury thing has people a little worried. But, I think he'd probably be my favorite play from the game. Let's move on. Tennessee Titans, Minnesota Vikings, 48.5 total, which has risen from 45.5. That's a 3-point move. Big. Titans opened up -1.5. They're up to -2.5. The Vikings offense look terrible. Anyway, with that said, talk about the Titans first, though. They're the road team. You going back to Derrick Henry?
Yes. I think, strictly on ownership alone, I think people are going to be scared off of him. And this is something that I think Paulie would totally agree with. Go right back to him, especially when people he was 90% owned and he got 8 points last week. So this week he's playing a team where the script should be in their favor again. I mean, Minnesota's. People are starting to talk about Minnesota, losing for Trevor Lawrence. That's how bad they look against the Colts on Sunday. So I don't know. I feel like where Henry is priced, and we don't have a C-Mac. There's no Barkley, so you got Zeke and then you got Cook, Jacob. I mean, he might be more popular, but I think people are going to maybe been down a little bit at running back this week because there is a couple running backs that are in really good matchups coming up that we just haven't talked about yet. So I think Henry is in a great spot ownership-wise against Minnesota. We saw Aaron Jones run one over them week 1, and then Jonathan Taylor was over 100 yards last week. So this defense is not very good. If they were to get A.J. Brown back, that would help and would make a little bit more relevant for guys like, Tannehill a little bit more relevant. But if he's not back, fire up Jonnu Smith again. We saw what he could do when they give him a little bit more targets. His price is up a little bit to $5,600, but it's still pretty affordable. And, he's about 6 targets a game. He's gotten 3 touchdowns already on the year. So Jonnu Smith is a definitely, if you're not going Henry and cash, maybe that's a way to go. But the Titans are an interesting team on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the Vikings are more so the interesting team. It's interesting how bad they have become, and I think that they just lost Bart too, if I'm not mistaken. They're just in bad shape, man. So I think that one way or another, if you think the Vikings offense is going to put something together against Tennessee, and it's not like Tennessee's had an easy go of it with in week 2. They didn't look so hot, but Minnesota has been just anemic offensively, man. They've been just awful. So another correlation spot, if you think Derrick Henry and the defense are going to get the job done in this game, if you think it's going to be another dominant outing, then I think Derrick Henry and the Tennessee defense makes a lot of sense. If not, I think the leverage here would be with one of these receivers. If A.J. Brown is in, he's your guy, right? The target leader. If he's out, that's going to open things up for Davis and Humphries. Davis I'm a little sketchy. It's just both of those guys are kind of. I think if A.J. Brown is out, it just enhances Henry more than anything else, right? There's don't even fake it. This team. You could see this being a situation where they get up on Minnesota because Minnesota's defense is that bad and their offense is that bad. And they end up just getting up and just, why not give Henry 30 carries? Why not? Mm-hmm. So I do think it's a game script situation. What about the Vikings side? I mean, we don't sound too high on them, but Dalvin Cook, any interest?
He's still, if you played him the first 2 weeks, he wouldn't have killed you, but I just don't think he's an 8,600 running back right now. I mean, he's gotten under 100 yards both times, getting only 13 carries a game right now. If he didn't get the touchdowns, he really would not be doing much. So even last week, he got that touchdown really late. I don't think you need Cook at all. Adam Thielen, he's becoming an up and down guy. I mean, I don't know. He still had the targets last week, but just couldn't convert anything. So I don't know. At his price, with the guys around him, I think you just pass. And you don't want Cousins. So that's it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the more we look into this, the more I'm into the Tennessee Titans defense and Henry thing. I don't like to attack Dalvin Cook with anything. Like I respect him, think he's good and everything, but if the game scripts are going to constantly lead them to, where they're trailing, it's going to really take the ball out of his hands. Not to mention, it does seem like Alexander Mattison is getting work. It's not like they're using Cook as the way that Tennessee uses Henry. They're working in Madison, which makes things a little more sketchy for my liking. Let's move on. We've got the Cincinnati Bengals and the Philadelphia Eagles. 46 total. Eagles currently 6.5-point favorites at home. Talk to me about Joe Burrow, thorough Joe Burrow, and the Bengals.
Thorough Joe Burrow. With the workload that Giovanni Bernard is getting lately, it makes you want to just fade Joe Mixon completely. He's 7K, but I just don't know what you can expect from him. It's funny because Mixon's gotten the carries. He just hasn't really done much with them. He's kind of done exactly what Joe Mixon has done. He just hasn't. I mean, what Cook has done. He just haven't scored the touchdown. So this is exactly what you get, and maybe where Cook should be, priced. Burrow, you don't need him. I don't think that anybody on this offense right now you can really rely on that much. The tight end I will maybe go to because he's really, really cheap. That's Drew Sample, 4,800. He's a rookie, but we saw that he got 9 targets against Cleveland, and that was like after Uzomah went out. Like Uzomah started that game and scored a touchdown, and then Sample came in and got 9 targets, 7 for 45. And so at his price, I don't know what his price is on DK, but on FanDuel, 4,800, that's not bad. I'm going to be looking into him because we know that they're probably going to be in a negative game script, and they're going to be passing like they were all day, and they're going to want Burrow to pass. So to me, I like probably Drew Sample the most out of all those guys because all the receivers, AJ Green, something looks off. I can't believe he's 5,900. Tyler Boyd used to be a fairly good floor guy, but you just don't know what's going to happen. He scored last week, which wasn't bad. So I like Drew Sample. That's probably my favorite play from that side.
Yeah, every time I hear you say Drew Sample, I think about the Chinese food place at the mall. Always trying to be a free sample. Over there, I would be yelling. You have that by you? Is there like a Chinese food place at the mall?
No, they have that. It's more of like Costco. But
They yell at you free sample all the time. Free sample.
Mm-hmm.
I like this game, man. I do. I think that Cincinnati's defense is horrendous. I think that Cincinnati's offensive line really holds them back, but they have enough skill players to where I think they could do some work on a defense that allows them to. And the Eagles' defense, we know, is a pass funnel. Joe Mixon, despite that, Joe Mixon is interesting simply because of the rushing attempts he's getting per game. He's getting so many touches per game that when the guy is 5'9", you need to take a hard look at that and make sure before you make any decisions. I'm leaning towards no because there are other running backs I know I like on the slate, and this is not an ideal matchup, but the usage is going to command some attention with Joe Mixon now that his price on DraftKings is dropped down to 5.9. I like AJ Green a lot, man. The targets are there. I agree that he doesn't totally look like himself, but he's dealing with the rookie quarterback, and there's also been Joe Burrow missing AJ Green on throws. Like they've tried though. They are throwing the ball down the field. Last week, AJ Green had to deal with Ward, who I respect, right? And Boyd got the touchdown. This week, I think AJ Green is going to be, a little bit more competitive, I think. And again, I'm chasing the volume. So the volume is there. The targets are there. I mean, he's averaging 11 targets a game, but only averaging 4 catches. So that at some point you would expect that to kind of come, whether it's Joe Burrow getting better or AJ Green getting better. But as long as the plan is to feed him the ball and he's 6K on DraftKings, I'm definitely interested. And I agree with you on Sample as well. 3,500 should be primary tight end. Looked really good in week 2, so I'm fine with that. Rookie quarterbacks like to blanket their tight ends. We've been through this. They like to blanket them, pepper them, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I'm good with it. 3,500, 48 on FanDuel. But AJ Green is Sample right now my favorites. I just want to take a hard look because I do like this game. What about the Eagles side?
The Eagles side, Miles Sanders looked good. He's 7,400, and he got 20 carries. I mean, that's awesome. That's exactly what we want. I feel like he's a pretty safe bet on Sunday. Like they totally gave him a full workload. He also got 7 targets. He got a touchdown. And at 7,400, I think he's my favorite play. And probably in line for one of your cash game running backs because he's not as expensive and there's not really that many big boys that are in great spots. So Miles Sanders is probably my favorite play from this. I don't think you need Wentz. The receivers, if you wanted to throw like Rager or Deshaun Jackson, you could. The tight ends too, I think, are both in play. Ertz and Dallas Goddard. His price is 5,200, but Goddard still gets 9 or 8 targets a game. So at 5,200, he can get. It's about whether or not he converts some of those and gets some yak after, yards after the catch, or if he gets in the end zone. But at 5,200, he's firmly in play. If you wanted to do a stack or something like that, but to me, it's Miles Sanders. He really stands out.
I really like the Eagles, and it's early. Obviously, it's Tuesday night. Well, Tuesday night for you, Wednesday morning for this guy. Mm-hmm. But still, it's early, and there's a lot of time between now and the final day, and a lot of content to be done in between. But right now, I really like the Eagles' offense. I mean, one of the biggest, like Wentz has Deshaun Jackson. Rager looks all right. Or he's got Ertz and Goddard, who both look good. Sanders back with high usage, and this may be like the first game where he may not be under like tremendous pressure running for his life. He may actually have time in this game. Like even Baker Mayfield, man, he looked a lot better last week when he had some time, didn't he? So I think that my initial Sanders is the one that pops out the most, and it's like we talked about with Mixon, except he actually did well. 20 rushing attempts, 7 targets. He missed week 1. It was precautionary. Week 2 came back and they showed that was the case. 7 targets. What we're talking about? 7 targets and 20 rushing attempts. He seems awesome at running back. Right now, I'm thinking like you could even pair him with Wentz if this game goes to where it goes, and do a triple stack with Deshaun Jackson. And that's the other thing about it. When Wentz throws, they are throwing down the field. They're trying to get the ball down the field without time. So now that they have some time, I think we will see them take some shots if Cincinnati's able to push them enough, which I think is also at least on the table. Cincinnati has a lot of time to prepare for this game. They were on Thursday Night Football, correct? Yeah, that was Thursday night. So working with some extra time to prepare, right? I do like the situation, man. I like Sanders. I think if Sanders does not do well, then one of these receivers or Ertz or Goddard or somebody just smash, and that was the only reason Sanders didn't do well. Otherwise, I think there's enough for everybody to eat here. But we need, and I'm going back to the AJ Green call, we need Houston to be competitive. Cincinnati to be competitive here enough to push that shit, because I do see potential. I see potential in the Eagles offense. And I never liked the Eagles offense as a whole, but I kind of like them. Kind of.
Yeah, and don't forget, Chubb and Hunt ran all over Cincinnati last week.
Oh, no doubt about it. And I definitely like Sanders. I just think
And I think the public might forget that a little bit. I don't know, because it was a Thursday night game. I don't know. Maybe because it's Philly and everybody loves, like, I feel like the perception in the NFC East, everybody knows what's going on with them. But, it was a Thursday night game, and they might forget that Chubb and Hunt ran all over
Absolutely.
them.
Absolutely. Ran all over them, for sure. But definitely, Sanders, I do like him a lot. But I think that there's more in this Eagles team that I got interest in as well. I think I like this game for the Jepepes. Next, we've got the Chicago Bears and the Atlanta Falcons. 47.5 total. Falcons opened up -3. They're up to -3.5. Falcons, man, they are just, I mean, what do you even call them, man? They're just really, really good at blowing leads. Like, really, really good at it. Like, the way they do it is super entertaining and really, really good at it. Talk to me about the Bears side, man.
Well, the Bears side, people are like, okay, they're going to break out. They have a chance to be, 3-0. They have, Trubisky's at 7,500. I wouldn't pay that at all, especially when, like, the quarterback on the other side is only $300 more. The Bears are 2-0. They only put up 17 points against the Giants. Yeah. Let's sit in, okay? I'll keep talking, CK, but before everybody's like, oh, the Bears are going to score all these points because Atlanta's defense is terrible. All right, they were a great matchup last week and did shit. All right, and Atlanta was pretty good until like the end of the third quarter, which for some reason the end of third, man, they just can't play 4 quarters. But I feel like the Bears might be a little bit of fool's gold. Like, if you were stacking this game, like, I would have a piece of the Bears maybe, but I wouldn't go Bears stack with a piece of the Falcons unless you just want to be contrarian. But in my mind, I just don't think that you need to go with the Bears, in my opinion. Montgomery has been a pretty damn good so far this year. He had 16 carries last week. He got 3 targets, got a receiving touchdown. So at his price, at 6,100, that's not a bad value, too. And I think he's in play. I think he's probably my favorite of this game if I was looking at it as a cash game sense. Last week, Allen Robinson was in a great spot. He's in a great spot again, but I don't know. Trubisky's just like so erratic. So he gets 9 targets, but it's all over the place. So it's really tough. You can't count on Anthony Miller either. I mean, he got a goose egg last week, and people were saying he was in a good matchup. So, to me, it's like it's either Robinson or Montgomery, in my opinion, and I fade Trubisky. I don't think you ever need to play Mitchell Trubisky in DFS. You don't need to.
Yeah, it's hard to make an argument for him, just because I think there's other. I mean, I talked about Carson Wentz for $100 more. I understand it's Atlanta in the Dome, but I agree with you in that I'd be content getting my exposure to him through a guy like Allen Robinson, who does a little bit more for me at wide receiver, some low ownership, right? The targets look pretty good, as in the amount of targets, not literally the targets look good, because he's only catching, less than half of them right now. But Montgomery is kind of interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if Tyreek Cohen popped a little bit here, just if Atlanta's able to get ahead. One thing about Atlanta, they've been pretty good against the run itself, but they have given up a lot of those short passes still. So I'm not, I don't know if I'm willing to put nothing crazy on that shit, but just something to keep in mind. But I think Robinson and Montgomery are the two that I would look at this moment as well. What about the Falcons side, man? What do you think of this Bears defense?
Well, I think we literally had the passing of the torch last week because Calvin Ridley is now priced above Julio Jones on FanDuel. Is he on DraftKings?
No, Julio's still $200 more expensive.
But right now, Calvin Ridley is just, man, I have him on like 50% of my seasonal teams, man. I'm just loving it. When he gets over 8 targets, I wrote it in my article last week. When he gets over 8 targets in a game, he averages like 25 FanDuel points. So he's 8K now. He's up with the big boys. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to make a decision because you got D-Hop or Ridley this week, So I think it comes down to matchup. I think that people might not even play Ridley because they might think I might just pay $500 more for D-Hop, which he's in a good spot. We obviously think he's obviously getting the targets. And the game, they should be able to score points against the Bears. The Bears' defense isn't great. So I'll fire up Ridley again. Gage is in a good spot. I also probably think that Hayden Hurst is in another good spot also. We saw T.J. Hawkinson score a touchdown against these Bears week 1. And then Ingram got 8 targets or 6 catches in week 2. So they give up, catches to the tight end position. So I don't mind Hayden Hurst again at that point. And, one of these days, everybody keeps saying, one of these days, Julio's going to have one of those games. I mean, it could happen now that people might be like, let's go double Ridley instead. But it's kind of tough to me. And Matt Ryan, at his price, like I said earlier, he is $300 more than Trubisky. So I'll just play Matt Ryan if I was going to stack that game.
Fair enough. Matt Ryan's been really consistent, right, with the yardage. You just kind of know it's coming. You mentioned one of these days about Julio. One of these days, Todd Gurley is going to get into the end zone. Is going to have one of those 2 touchdown games. He's averaging 17.5 attempts per game, which is pretty good. I know a lot of that came in the first one. But he's 5,800 on DraftKings, man. He's cheap. The pass target hasn't really been a thing, only averaging about 3 targets a game. That's a little like blah. But I agree with you on the receivers, right? Like one of these days, Julio is going to have a good game, you would think, man. I mean, we've seen good games from Gage and Ridley. Ridley twice. I'm fine with it. Again, against Chicago, you kind of get the feeling that either Atlanta's offense is struggling against Chicago's defense, or Atlanta's just kind of dominating the time of possession because of Trubisky's unable to get things going. So I don't know. It's one to think about in a tough matchup. But Julio Jones, $200 more than Ridley. Like it's getting real tempting. Real tempting.
Another thing we got to look at is right now that the Bears are 10 in passes allowed. So he's one of those pass funnel defenses. So they're letting you pass, and that's right into the Falcons' hands. So I do like them. I think you could probably just do Ryan and Ridley. Oh, leave them alone and then pair with something else. You don't even need one of the Bears to get what you need from that matchup. But it seems to me like the Bears are good to be picked on, and it's tough to be run on. So fire up the Falcons.
The Bears. Let's go to the next game. The New York Jets. My New York Jets. That's right, I said it. Visiting the Indianapolis Colts. Total is 44, down from 45. Colts opened up minus 9.5. They're up to minus 10.5. Talk to me about the New York Jets.
Do we have to?
Is there anything to talk about with the New York Jets?
They're playing the Colts. Let's see.
Start with the easy stuff. I like it.
Let's see. They're playing the Colts on the road. They have Frank Gore as their starting running back. Their wide receivers. We'll see if Jamison Crowder's back. Looks like Perriman's out. Everybody wants Chris Herndon to do good, but that's not going to happen. The Colts defense all of a sudden is 4,800. They were 3,600 last week. So that shows you that they just don't think anything of the Jets. I even said, bold call of the week, I thought the Jets were going to beat the Niners. I even said it. I was like, it's one of those games where the Jets just hold them and they win some crazy game. And the first play of the game, Mostert goes for 80 yards. And I'm like, oh, that's different.
Bro, that was the butt fumble game. They had that written all over it. The butt fumble. It was written.
Yeah, it's tough. So, Sam Darnold is, once he can get away from Gase, I think will be just fine.
By that time, we'll have Trevor Lawrence because by the end of this season, with Woody Johnson coming out and like backing him up, basically endorsing him once again, that tells me that they may let Gase ruin not just Darnold, they may let him ruin another quarterback if given the opportunity, and they're on a fast track to that right now.
Mm-hmm. That would be interesting if they got the first pick, if they would give up on Darnold.
I think they would. 100%. You know why? Because nobody here, Gase nor the GM, I can't fucking think of his name, Joe Douglas, drafted him. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So that's easy for them. They're not attached. Same thing with Le'Veon Bell. Like, I'm surprised. I'm waiting for them to cut Le'Veon Bell. I'm waiting for that to happen. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I just feel like, the other guy, Braxton Berrios, he did something last week. So he's one of those dart throws, I guess, if you're playing 150 lineups, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That you throw him in there. But, for me, a guy that plays 3 lineups at the most a week, crossing off. Yeah, I'm with you. You just got to think there's stuff to like elsewhere. Yeah, I really got nothing here. If Crowder's in, that's a difference maker to me because the amount of targets that Crowder has been, did see in week 1, and we saw it last year too, are pretty impressive. So if he's in, which I'd be surprised if he did play, I'd like him. Other than that, I'm with you. Listen, what about the Colts, man?
Well, the Colts, once again, you have Jonathan Taylor in a good matchup, 6,700. We saw what, the Niners did against them. This is the same type of running team. They want to run the ball. You hope that, if they would get in a little bit more up and down, he'd get some more you get some more targets and stuff like he did the first game. But I don't mind Taylor. Rivers is fine at 7K, but I just don't think that you're going to need it. The receivers, Paris Campbell is, out now. T.Y. Hilton just is not doing what people think he's going to be doing. I wouldn't cut him, but I would definitely be looking to, not play him. Michael Pittman is a little interesting. Probably the guy besides Taylor that I'd be looking at is Mo Alley Cox, especially if Jack Doyle is out again. Mo Alley Cox probably becomes like one of the safest cash play if you're not going to play Taylor. He got all the targets last week, and it's trending to where Doyle's not going to play again. So Mo Alley Cox and Taylor are my 2 favorite plays from there, and the Colts defense too.
What do you think the problem is with Hilton, man? He's.
I don't think Rivers can throw the ball downfield anymore. Now, I haven't watched any of their games much, so I'm totally in the dark about that.
Hilton has had a really serious drop issue this year. He dropped a touchdown pass, I believe, in week 1, and then in week 2, right out the gate, he dropped 2 pretty, I don't know, fairly easy looking passes, I'd say. And then after that, it seemed like he was like Rivers just said, "Fuck you, I'm not throwing it to you." Then, like it honestly looked like Rivers was like, "All right, dude, if you're not catching the ball, I'm not throwing it to you." Hilton was really upset. They said after the drop, he's having an issue. He's having a drops issue. He's 5,600, man, against. And look, when you look at DVP and all that shit, it's gonna say that the Jets are weaker against the run than the pass. I don't think that's really true. I think the issue. Now I know Mostert kind of that one play was 80 yards, and that certainly helped boost everything. But I do think that they'll be worse again. I think their secondary is their biggest weakness. And the only reason that it shows this way is because of game scripts. They're trailing so fucking bad in these games. The opposing teams are just able to constantly run the ball. So the the running backs are racking up yardage, they're racking up opportunities, and eventually defenses wear down regardless. But I do think this is a very vulnerable secondary, and I think that's their biggest weakness, especially considering they just have no pass rush. So if they choose to throw the ball, one of these receivers with no Paris Campbell. And I would hate for it to be Pascal. You're 100% right. It could be Doyle or Cox. Assuming if Doyle's out, then that makes Cox an easier decision. But I think I'm a little bit more interested in the passing game. But I also think that there's a strong case to be made for Jonathan Taylor. and the Colts defense correlation, just play them together. Colts defense looks good, so why wouldn't Taylor look good? But I'm just tempted, man, with this pass game. Rivers is going to have all day, and these guys are cheap. Hilton, Pascal, something, right? Tight ends, something. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. You fucking know, Joe. I know you do. Next up, Carolina Panthers, Patio Joe's Los Angeles Chargers, 44 total. Chargers opened up -7, down to -6.5. We'll start with Carolina, and then I'll let you talk about the Chargers. But first, talk to me about the Christian McCaffrey list, Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not going to look at Teddy Bridgewater, 6,700. I mean, it's fine, but you'd have to think that the game script is, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like you're going to need it. You don't need it. As running backs, Mike Davis is going to be the guy that you're looking at. He's more of a DraftKings play, in my opinion, though. He's $6K on FanDuel, and you saw how he got like 8 targets when he came out. So he's going to get the targets. It's going to be a negative game script, so I don't mind it. But this Chargers defense is pretty good, and they limited CEH. People aren't saying all of a sudden Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the next coming of Walter Payton anymore. You know what I'm saying? So this defense is good. So Mike Davis is in play. More on DraftKings. Receiver side, Robbie Anderson is like 3rd or 4th in the league in receiving yards so far. So he's gotten like 18 targets, 2 games. So I mean, at 6,100, his price is rising. His problem, I mean, he's a Jets guy. His problem is, 1, he's with Gase, and 2, he's been like injury prone. So now that he's away from that, he's been targeted more than DJ Moore, and he's less priced. So I don't mind Robbie Anderson in a GPP format because you just don't know. You feel like you're gonna have Casey Hayward's gonna be on him, I think, or Chris Harris, one of the two. So to me, it's Davis or Robbie Anderson.
Yeah, Davis on DraftKings, like you said, 5,100. The pass game work was certainly in play. Who else is there besides Mike Davis? Like I heard there was some murmurs about Curtis Samuel getting some opportunities, which he already rushes the ball from time to time. But I mean, is this guy gonna be out there for every snap? I mean, if that's
the Reggie Bonifant.
Okay, that sounds like fun. But yeah, on DraftKings, like you said, he had the 8 targets in week 2. That was kind of a standout. You got to figure they're going to be trailing in this game, and that's got to bode well. So even though the matchup on paper is bad, if at this price, if he's going to get that much work, I think he's worth at least considering. But if he's going to be popular, that is going to make my stomach turn a little bit. Receivers are okay, but I'm with you. There's not a ton here I like. Anderson's been impressive, but one of these days Moore is actually averaging more targets per game. It's only been 2 weeks, so who gives a fuck? It's like skewed anyway. But Moore is getting targeted. It's just not been efficient. And I agree that this matchup is not going to be any easier, assuming that Casey Hayward is assigned to him specifically. But not a ton that I like anyway from the Carolina side. Mike Davis would be someone to keep an eye on. What about the Chargers, Joey? Your Chargers, man. Do you think Herbert's going to play, or what's up with Tyrod?
I mean, everybody in LA, everybody saw with their eyes that, one, to me, the Chargers are not a Super Bowl team. They ain't even a Super Bowl contender. They maybe could sneak into the playoffs as the last team. But the worst thing that you could be in the NFL is to be mediocre, because that means you're in like purgatory. That means you don't get a top 10 draft pick, you don't get, you're not, get one of those premier players, and you're not one of the best teams. So the way I look at it is Herbert should be starting. Everybody in LA thinks that Herbert should be starting. So maybe they'll make up some weird thing that, if Tyrod Taylor is, out again, he's week to week. So if he plays, he's 7,200. So he's right around he's priced up too much on FanDuel. But if he does play, it makes me like Austin Eckler even more. We saw Austin Eckler get more targets, and everybody's talking about Joshua Kelly, which, I mean, I don't know. Like, the Chargers want to run the ball. Joshua Kelly ran it for 23 times for 64 yards. Like that's terrible. And then Eckler gets in there. He has 16 attempts for 93 with a 6-yard rushing attempt. Like, Austin Eckler is the starting running back of this team. I don't know why they just want to just continuously still run with Kelly, but he has a role at 5,900 on FanDuel. He makes a good GPP play. But for me, Eckler is another safe cash game play against the worst run defense in the league. So I feel like Eckler at his price, especially if Herbert does play, that makes it better because he'll dump off more. The receivers, you just don't need it. I don't think you need it. Their secondary at Carolina has been decent. And Keenan Allen hasn't really been that good. Mike Williams has been okay. I think Hunter Henry is 6K. You could throw. He's gonna, if he gets in the end zone, he's fine. He's vanilla. He's gonna get you, 8 targets. Like, literally, if you look at his box score, it's pretty much the same from week 1 to week 2. So be thinking he's pretty much going to be like that every week. Almost 2x on FanDuel. So he's always in play if you just want a safe play. And then I think the Chargers defense is in play also. At 5K though.
Yeah, they priced up all the really good spots. Bastards.
I haven't really looked at defense. I mean, there hasn't really been like a lower one that kind of stands out. I mean, that's why I feel like, just looking at defense right now, a lot of Arizona, people are going to go to Arizona again.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
We'll talk about that sooner than you know, Joe. But first, I agree with the running back situation here. I think I want to believe that it's an Eckler week because I think he'll get the first crack at it, and I think that whoever gets the first crack at it is going to look good because this is the worst rushing defense in the league. So I'll have Eckler. If I decide to go heavy on Eckler, I'll make sure to have some hedge teams with Kelly. I mean, if this was a smaller slate or one-game slate, I would most definitely be playing both of them together, on the showdown shit. And we've seen crazy shit happen. But, yeah, it's hard not to favor the running backs, particularly Eckler, who I expect to carry some ownership. I think Mike Williams for value could be interesting just for the upside sake, especially if Herbert's there. I like him throwing the deep ball better than like Tyrod. But in general, I'm with you. I think it's Eckler. If Tyrod is there, then I think that's a boost for Henry. We know that Tyrod's always had a thing for tight ends. So, but yeah, I do like the running game a lot in the spot for San Diego against the inept Carolina defense. Now, Detroit Lions, Arizona Cardinals, 54.5 total, up from 53. The Cardinals opened up -6.5. They're down to -5.5, despite 66% of the wagers coming in on the Cardinals. Joey, talk to me about the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, there's not much to talk about. You don't really know how they're going to produce from week to week. Stafford is okay, and they're going to get Golladay back this week, but he's 7,500, and he's going to be facing against Patrick Peterson. I just don't know. I mean, maybe that makes guys like, Cephas and Jones a little bit more playable, or Amendola a little bit more attractive, or Hawkinson a little bit better. But the Cardinals have done pretty good against tight ends so far this year, so I wouldn't necessarily go running to go play TJ Hawkinson on Sunday. So there's not much here of the Detroit side that I really like. The running game, you have no idea how that's going to shake out either. So just stay away from that.
Do we have a status on Golladay?
They say he's in line to play.
If he plays, I do think that's kind of big for Stafford. Because just having that option. I mean, you look at the guys he's throwing to without, and Marvin Jones has never really been a number one. I think the number 2 suits him. I don't want to rule Stafford out necessarily, especially with the pace that Houston plays. The running back situation has been where Arizona's been a little more vulnerable. It's just really, really, I hate dissecting this, man. DeAndre Swift and Peterson, Kerryon Johnson. It's real fucking confusing to decipher that. So I guess, for the sake of tournaments, going up against Arizona, who I know wants to play fast and push the tempo and throw the ball a lot, I want to be interested in something here. I guess I don't want to necessarily accept that Matt Stafford is struggling this hard, being that, last year before he got hurt, he was fucking looking great. But maybe I'm forcing it. But it's got a high total. I think there's something on Detroit. And the running game situation seems kind of hard to figure out. And that's the path where I get burned. But I think I might take some shots on the passing game here with Stafford and some of these Detroit guys. Just in tournaments, just to be a little different, get exposure. Because you got to figure, they got one of the highest totals on the slate. And I do agree with you that I think people are going to just as easily. Yes, they'll play Arizona. Yes, they'll play Dallas. They'll play Seattle. But this is a team, part of this high total game, and I'm not sure how many people are going to play them. So it kind of interests me a little bit. What about the Cardinals side?
The Cardinals side, I mean, once again, you got Kyler Murray in just an amazing matchup. He's 8,400 though, and he's starting to get priced up to where you're going to have to make a decision. But he's running for touchdowns. He's averaging about 30 points a week at 8,400. That's almost 4x. He's also throwing the ball, almost 40 times a game. So fire up Murray. And you could play him naked if you wanted to, but not DeAndre Hopkins is the man. You've seen he's going to him left and right. And we all see how Detroit, you can throw on them. You can also run on them too. So I feel like Kenyon Drake is going to be somewhat of a sexy matchup. He's had a couple bad matchups the first couple weeks. Hasn't done that great, but I mean he's still done 2x at what he has, and if he gets in the end zone, he's fine. He did that against the Niners, and that was week 1. So he gets a much better matchup this week. And at 6,500, I mean he's below guys like Jonathan Taylor. So I don't mind Kenyon Drake at all. And then the defense, we talked about the defense being a good, just 3,700. They're probably the cheap defense that you're going to want on Sunday.
Yeah, I think this situation is like eerily similar to the Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams one. I think Hopkins is going to be very popular. I think Kyler Murray is going to be very popular. And I think because of the price of Kenyon Drake and the amount of other running back options we have at that price, I think we'll see Kenyon Drake's ownership kind of fall really low. Now, I'm not saying that, this is phenomenal, everybody go all in on Kenyon Drake, but I'm interested. 18 rushing attempts per game, averaging 73 yards per game. Hasn't gotten a ton of passing work, but if he's going to get the end zone, if he's going to get the touchdowns, I'm cool with that. And think about this. If Murray and Hopkins are popular in tournaments, if they don't completely smash, again, and we're looking at Detroit, same situation, right? Like it's hard to envision a team playing Detroit, a good offense playing Detroit and not doing well. If they don't, you would think that means Kenyon Drake did. So, or it could be Christian Kirk just as easily, don't get me wrong. But I'm talking about in a world where Murray and Hopkins failed to reach their expectation. I think Kenyon Drake would be the guy. So I'll have some exposure to Kenyon Drake in tournaments for sure. But obviously I'll leave some room for Kyler Murray, Hopkins stacks, working some Kirk, who I still prefer Kirk over Fitzgerald because when Kirk gets the ball thrown to him, it's something good. Whereas Fitzgerald is getting a lot of just catch the ball and get tackled immediately type shit. But yeah, Kenyon Drake's interesting to me. For sure. Game of the week, arguably. Well, I guess it depends on who you ask. Dallas Cowboys, Seattle Seahawks, 55.5 total. Seattle opened up -4. They're up to -5 at home. Talk to me about Dak and the boys.
Yeah, this is the game of the week. Their defenses are both really bad. And so everybody's going to be going here. And I think you need to get a piece of it in either your cash games or your tournaments. At least have one. You don't need to go with the quarterbacks, but they're both in play. But on the Dallas side, you're looking at Dak. He's the second highest on the slate. No problem with that. The running backs, I think I'd stay away from Zeke. Seattle's pretty good against the run. They've shored that up. I feel like Jamal Adams is going to take away all the Dalton Schultz hype at tight end. So it's the receivers that you're going to be going after. And CeeDee Lamb is the one that stands out to me now. After 2 games, you see his target share going up. He went 6 for 106. I feel like he's almost become ahead of Gallup now in the pecking order to Dak. And Cooper is fine at 7,000, but I think to save some money, go save $1,400 more and go for CeeDee Lamb, who's done just as much as Cooper has done in 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys' offense has looked awesome. It's been what we expected. I think that Seattle has been awful against the pass, but against the run with guys like with Jamal Adams there, I think that certainly helps plug up some of the holes. So I'm okay with Zeke, but I'm curious to see the ownership. I'm assuming that he's going to garner quite a bit in this game, and for good reason. The usage is not a problem, right? 6 targets a game, 22 carries a game. Everything looks good. I'm fine with Zeke. But I think the passing game is where Seattle has been more vulnerable for sure. So Dak Prescott obviously in play. Amari Cooper, I'm good with in that price range. Usually his splits say to play him, at home, but he had a pretty decent week 1. I think Michael Gallup is the one in tournaments that can kind of slip through. I kind of think CeeDee Lamb is going to be somewhat popular on DraftKings. Rightfully so. He's been awesome. So I think CeeDee Lamb is a fine play, and I think he's the optimal play over Gallup. But I do think that there is a world where Gallup kind of sneaks through and gets a little bit of pop. He's getting about 5 targets a game, so it's not pretty. But 5 targets a game, 54 yards. So the upside, I think, is per game is there. But it's really just taking a chance and trying to be different in a game that should have a ton of ownership all around it. I expect this game to be extremely popular. So, what's not to like, right? I like this. I do like Zeke. I'm not saying I don't like Zeke. I'm just saying that I think that the passing game has really been where Seattle's been more vulnerable. What about the other side of this game with Seattle?
Oh, well, MVP Wilson's on a mission. I feel like this game, if they need a touchdown at the end, he's going to bring him back. He's averaging about 32 points a game so far. He's 8,700. He still ran a little bit here and there. So fire him up again in your stacks. Like I'm saying, I feel like if you can get up to him, that's fine. Like maybe start with Cam like in there, but if you can get up to him, if there's money, then fine. Because I feel like the back and forth waves, I feel like Russ and Dak both have a higher ceiling than Cam do on Sunday. So if you can get up to them, that's fine. So I like that. The running game, you could play Carson if you wanted to, but I'm going to the passing game to my boy, my man crush, DK Metcalf. Again, he's not priced up because he played in the Sunday night game. He manhandled Mr. Gilmore. That's right. Who's supposed to be the best corner in the game. Literally just threw him down like a rag dog. All right. So DK Metcalf at 6,500. I love him again. He's getting the targets. It don't matter, and especially in this game, I mean, he's basically had the same stat line the first 2 weeks. So I like it. He's almost 3x, his matchup is just as good or better. Lockett is also good too. I don't mind him at all. We saw what he did, and he's priced up a little bit higher. I think Lockett is just more of a DraftKings play. And DK is more of a FanDuel play. It's just how it always is going to shake out. Don't need to play Olsen or Disley, and don't need to play the defenses.
Yeah, I mean Russell Wilson. Him and Dak both look like optimal, quarterbacks. In terms of ceiling, we don't have Patrick Mahomes on this slate. We don't have Lamar Jackson, and these guys have been fucking good to start the season. You mentioned Metcalf and Lockett. They're both projecting really well for us for good reason. Dallas has been horrible against the pass. I think this could be a sneaky spot for Chris Carson also, who's averaging 6 targets a game. We saw in week 1, Russell Wilson did cook, and they have been letting Russ cook, and it's been phenomenal to see. But Carson was a part of that in week 1. We know that Dallas is missing Van Der Esch, and they've got some issues that they're dealing with as far as injuries go on both sides of the ball. But I think that there's a case to be made for Carson, especially if his ownership slips slow. Again, he seems kind of like the leverage play if the pass game of Seattle does not do what it's supposed to do, or even if Russ is still doing his thing, but it's not Metcalf or Lockett like in week 1, they were both kind of mediocre. It could, while Carson had a pretty good game compared to his expectations. So I think that there's some different ways to go, get creative. This game is going to be popular, but you definitely want to have a piece of it. It just seems kind of like the Atlanta Cowboys, the Atlanta and Dallas game last week. It just seems unavoidably a high-scoring game. You just don't really, it's tough to envision it any other way. So get your exposure to it in tournaments. Either get different elsewhere or get different within the game, but get exposure to it. Last game, Joe, Tampa Bay Bucks and the Denver Broncos, 43.5 total. Tampa opened up -6. They're still at -6. After talking about those last 2 games, not talking about this one, very uneventful, unexciting. Right. Yes. Right? Like, yeah. Anyway, Tampa.
For this game, I think that people are going to want to go to maybe the defenses or something like that. Maybe I think that you have a QB like Jeff Driscoll that's going to be starting. So the defense for Tampa kind of stands out. Now, the running backs, Fournette at 6,400, he went up. Ronald Jones went down. We still haven't really heard anything at who's the starter right now. Ronald Jones could still go out there and be the starter. He scored a touchdown last week. So, I even played Rojo and Cash, and he didn't kill you. He scored a touchdown. It did fine. So, I don't know. That backfield is just kind of weird. And we know that, Denver is good against the run at home. Something about it, they just run better. And, I wonder, it's all the offenses, guys. if Chris Godwin's back, I like it a little bit better because that will spread the field out, and that's what they're saying is going to happen. So, I guess Brady with Godwin and Evans in the stack could work, but I just don't think you need it. I don't think it's going to get there. I think it's going to be an ugly game. What's the over-under in this game?
43.5.
Oh, yeah. It's low. So I could see it being low again, like 21-17 or something like that. Nothing big. But yeah, there's Godwin or Evans is fine if you want to pay up, but I think most people will go to Ridley or D-Hop because Godwin and Evans are pretty much paid the same. I don't know many people are going to go to Brady. He looks like he's kind of shot. And then the running backs, it's just like kind of for where, like caution. Fournette could do it, but he really did it on like one run. So, and it was at the end. So it's not like crowned Fournette as a starter either.
I agree. I think that we're going to see some sort of committee in the beginning, and whoever plays better is going to get the job. I expect Fournette to get it ultimately, right? I don't think anybody's really comparing Leonard Fournette's talent to Ronald Jones's, but they're trying to at least appear fair and make Jones feel like he's getting a fair crack to earn his opportunity. Fournette, it just, is a better player. But I agree, it's tricky to take that chance, and I think the altitude in Denver is a big reason we see Denver's defense play well. I think running backs are just having a hard time keeping their breath when they get over there. So I expect Brady to throw. If Godwin is playing, then he's the preferred option. If he's out, then sure, we'll look at Mike Evans. I also think that O.J. Howard's kind of interesting. You're still playing that game with Rob Gronkowski and O.J., but right now O.J. seems to be the guy. So I do think that a tight end is one of the places you can attack Denver, as well as receiver B, to be honest, if he has his weapons. But I'm with you. This game is just so unexciting. What about the Denver side? Is there anything over there with old Driscoll?
It's funny. Driscoll, like if you look at his his history. Like, he can run the ball a little bit, and he throws. He's not like terrible, so he's okay. But I think the only player really in this game that I would look at, I mean, Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant. That's probably what I'm looking at on the Denver side if I'm playing anybody. Maybe KJ Hamler, which is like a dart throw, but nothing there. I think Judy's going to be just fine. He's got good talent. He can run routes with just about anybody. So, but it's going to be tough for now. I don't know about Melvin Gordon. His price is decent, and you know that Philip Lindsay's out. So, volume. It's like, who'd you rather play this week on FanDuel, Gordon or Drake?
Right now, I'd say Drake.
Yeah. So they're the same price on FanDuel. So I just don't know. Like, you know that he's going to get the carries and he's going to get a couple targets, but what's the script going to be like, you know? And it's just, I just don't know. Like, Gordon is decent. Maybe somebody you could gain some steam as the week goes on, but I don't know.
I agree. I think ceiling is like the issue, right? Like, even if Gordon gets into the end zone, when you got, like you said, Drake, who's in a game with a 54 total on a team that's favored at home against a really bad defense, and you flip that over against you got a good defense. Yeah, Gordon's at home, and the usage is going to be there. But ceiling, well, how many touchdowns do you expect from Gordon? 1? How many touchdowns do you expect Denver to even score? So I agree. I think Gordon's in play for tournaments, but it is hard to click his name over some of the other guys we've discussed, including Drake. Drake was the perfect example. I was looking at it like, man, we got David Johnson, we got all these guys in that same price range, and you said Drake, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, I would definitely play Drake over him. Just like right out the gate. But yeah, I think Gordon is actually my favorite player from this. I mean, maybe if with Sutton being out, if you really wanted to get dirty with some value, Deshaun Hamilton, 3,200 on DraftKings on our PPR site. But yeah, I don't see myself needing it. I'm just not into the studs really on the slate, so I just don't see myself really needing that shit. So Melvin Gordon and nothing, I think. Oh, and Noah Fant, I think we have to respect, that as well. But that's gonna do it for the first look, game by game. A lot to look into, man. And this slate's got a weird on DraftKings. A lot of guys are priced very similar to each other, so I think that it'll be interesting to see how ownership plays out. I'll be looking at ownership and trying to play my hand against it in tournaments. You guys can get Patio Joe's cash game breakdown at whitestick.com if you are a member. Please hit the like button. Please, if you're listening to this on Podbean or iTunes, please leave us a review. 5-star reviews really help us out. Like this on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, hit the notifications bell so you're notified whenever we go live. Don't forget, this is the first look. We'll be back with some more NFL DFS content. For the main slate on Friday night is Patio Joe and Paulie Lee go position by position after they got their research together, after we got some news together, and explain to you how they plan on dropping dirties on the NFL DFS industry. Joe, anything in closing before we get out of here, bro?
Yeah, this is week 3 now, so I'm really thinking that these teams are going to be hitting their strides with conditioning. This is almost like the 3rd week of preseason, so these teams are going to start coming together, and the sloppiness ain't going to be there, and the football is going to be hopefully better, and hopefully have less injuries this week too.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I definitely do. The injuries can really, really ruin a slate, and last week they did. So hopefully we get a little bit of reverse, and things settle down, and we get to see things for what they are. But I'm excited about week 3, man. I think there's a lot of tournaments are going to be really, really fun this week. That's for sure. With that said, for Patio Joe, for myself, the entire Wise Tech Nation, as always, good luck.
Peace.